Welcome to the Modern Pet Retailer, where independent pet retailers come together to run better businesses and make smarter decisions and stop leaving money on the table. Today, we're jumping into our next series at MPR, which is managing your digital presence online. And the topic today is going to be everything around e-commerce and local delivery and supplying customers outside of your four walls. We have a special guest today. Theresa's here from The Hungry Puppy. She's going to be talking about her perspective on delivery. Her business has been in it since 1987?
87.
87, yeah. So she's been doing it a long time, in and out. But we're talking mainly about those customers that we have to decide as a business, do we want to go after the e-commerce people that are going to Chewy, going to Amazon, or do we want to stay within our four walls? And that's going to be the decision and topic we're talking about today. Because the people that are already on those platforms, they haven't been shopping with you already. So you have to market to them different. You have to target them differently to try to earn their business back, whether it's coming into your store or using your e-commerce itself. So with Theresa, thank you for being here again and sharing your experience with us. Like I said, you've been working with The Hungry Puppy for nearly 35 years. Can you give everyone just a little background of your store located in New Jersey and how you ended up where you are today?
Sure. One thing I want to start is I haven't been here 35 years uninterrupted. The Hungry Puppy was established in 1987 by my aunt and my uncle, Frank and Theresa. They retired January 1st of last year, and that was when I basically took over. Going back 35 years, this was basically my first real job in high school. Carried me through college, filled a void. I needed income. It was a family business. It basically served its purpose. After college, I was in the public school system teaching, and I was working here on weekends. And then it just got to the point where I was getting married and I just had to cut back. And that was when I took a sabbatical. Then around 2011, 2012, I came back to basically manage their website and do their tech stuff, their phones, computers, network, things like that. And I had a business that I was running out of my house while I was raising my kids. And my business served this business. So I was very involved almost from the beginning with the website and the e-commerce portion of it. Now, deliveries had been around since day one. When my uncle left the finance industry and he and my aunt decided that they were going to embark on this adventure, which is basically what it's been, he incorporated business deliveries from day one, basically. The moment he opened his doors, he saw a need. There were other places, local establishments that would deliver farm feed for a fee. But there was really nobody delivering your dog's food, your cat food. And himself working in the city when he was in the finance industry, he knew I'm getting home late at night. I need to still feed the dogs. Don't really have time to go shopping during the day. So that was where that need basically started. He wanted to start that right out of the gate on 87. And from there, it basically just kind of moved on. He got the ball rolling. He was way ahead of the times with the e-commerce. When about 05 is when that was added on, which was well before the breakthrough. It was like just at the very beginning of that. So I was very fortunate when I came in as owner a year and a half ago to have everything already in place. Everything was established. E-commerce division with the Hungry Puppy. So that was pretty much where I wanted it. And then the delivery division just evolved over the years and is very strong today.
Yeah, that's awesome. Since I've only been in this industry for 5 years, I don't know a time when you couldn't get pet food delivered to your front door. So the fact that he's seen the need for it in 1987, that's just crazy. Props to Frank. Frank was one of the reasons when I first got in and I started joining a bunch of pet groups and pet retailer groups, he was always commenting and helping other stores. And that's how I got introduced. I was like, why is there not a group where he can do this like all the time? He had to jump in on Pets Plus magazine group or a retailer group and he seemed to always answer the questions the way I would want to answer them or get them answered myself, as opposed to just like Band-Aid solutions. He seemed to always be really willing to help this community and this industry no matter what. And I've seen you take that mantle and you continue commenting on these same groups when you have Facebook access. But
story for another day.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
a whole other bag of worms.
And he's still present on those groups. And let me tell you, that is the biggest driving force really for me, is that having both Frank and Theresa in my back pocket, basically. They're my aunt and uncle. They're not going anywhere. They obviously want to see everything continue to succeed. And that 40 years that they built, it's just full of knowledge. It's full of experience, trial and error, what worked, what didn't. And anytime that I have had an idea over the past 18 months that I wasn't too sure of, I would always just reach out to them and say, hey, you got a second? And then we'd go back and forth.
Yeah, someone has a similar mentor in my back pocket. It's very nice, right? You said delivery's kind of been a part of the business since day one, the local delivery aspect, and then e-commerce kind of came later. What was the catalyst to kind of what the first versions look like? Do you remember what you were using?
So I do. So in terms of remembering, obviously in 87, it was really just Frank explaining. That's the only memories, is really explaining and stories and whatnot. And that looked like he basically would field calls or people who wanted something that they needed. It was local to the store. They wouldn't be able to get there. He'd say, okay, I'll get it out to you. And he would do all of his deliveries after hours. He'd be open till 7. After 7, he'd get in his van and throw in his whatever product needs to be taken out that was put in there, picked and packed during the day between customers, because obviously when he was first starting out, there weren't as many customers coming through the door. So he had the time to do that himself. And he just made those deliveries himself after hours, weekends. A lot of it stemmed also from, he started out with a small hole in the wall for the size of his store. And so he wouldn't be able to carry full lines of everything, but he would be able to special order. So when somebody would ask, hey, do you carry this? He'd say, no, but I can get that by the end of the week and I will have it delivered to your door the day that it comes in. And that was basically how his model evolved. Taking those special orders initially really broke the ground for it. I don't have room to store, but I definitely will get it for you. And I'll not only get it for you, but I will bring it straight to your door. I will fill your cat's litter box if it takes filling your cat's litter box.
I had to do that for a customer a couple months back because she had somehow back surgery. And I was like, if you open the door for me, I'll get it to
We'll
you.
get it right where you need it. You're getting a family. You're not getting just a third party driver who's basically just going from point A to point B.
Since you have that as a strength and being able to service the customer like that, you can use that even in marketing. You'd be like, we had to help so-and-so with literally putting the litter in their practice. And you just put that on Facebook. You literally talk about that white glove service in kind of an anonymous type way. And people are like, that's the kind of service I want. Like, I want somebody to bring me, know who my dog is, know who I am, know exactly where I want this placed, kind of thing. So definitely, I think that's a huge advantage that we have as small businesses, that if we do incorporate e-commerce and delivery, that you should lean into, especially in your marketing channels. With delivery, how many deliveries are you guys doing an average during the week right now?
We do anywhere from, our goal is obviously 200 to 300. Sometimes it falls a little bit short, 175, 180, but depending on the week, we like to hit 200 to 300 deliveries a week. That's a really rough average, but that's everything from express deliveries. We have a chart, how many days since the last error. And it's like going back and bringing a bag because they brought the wrong bag out, which obviously we like to keep that to a minimum, but the totals we aim for 200 to 300 a week.
Yeah.
We're open 6 days a week. So regular deliveries run Tuesday through Friday. And then Saturdays are frozen and refrigerated because customers have to be home. We do make that a requirement. And then Sundays would be any express deliveries that have to come on, or there's a big something coming up where we just have a holiday shift or something.
Yeah. When you told me that number, my jaw dropped. I was like, I can't imagine operating. Right now, Brax's does 10 to maybe 12 deliveries a week because we do just the really immediate deliveries. And we haven't figured out the system just yet. And I was like, that's what I want. That's like, that would just open so many doors for Braxton specifically. It's a great number. And I think it definitely goes to say, you're just a single independent store. You don't have 4 or 5 different hungry puppies that you're servicing out of. You're just doing it one sole store.
And that was the primary purpose. Frank knew that he was not opening more than one door. he knew this was what he was able to handle and it was what he wanted to do. But he also knew he wanted customers from all of those other locations. So how are you going to get those customers? Nobody's going to drive 40 miles just to come pick up their dog food when there's nothing else or no other reason to bring them here, which is why we do our events. We have our dog park, we have the Rainbow Bridge Park, we have other things that we've added on now. But way back when, he really needed to expand his footprint. He wanted to open his doors to other areas without the expense of another building, without the overhead of running a whole nother store. And that's how he did that and then expanded to the e-commerce.
That is super capital efficient, being able to only have one standard location and then use the trucks, and you're not duplicating your personnel, you're not duplicating your footprint. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, those trucks are basically the store on wheels. It's the moving billboard.
Yeah, and I liked you guys' design on those. I shared one with the social media page that I stole off your website, and I was like, nice, good clean trucks.
Yeah, we have biscuits
like,
biscuits and butts. Butts is funny because the back of butts is the butts of all of the animals, the farm animals. That's why it's called butts. And biscuits is obviously just has the biscuits on it.
Yeah. And I know that, would you describe your area as the rural area? You said you go about 40 to 30 miles.
So it depends north, south, east, and west. So south, we go just about 40 miles, 38, 39 miles south. We go about 25, 30 miles north, anything more than we're hitting the bridge and the water in New York. And then maybe 20 miles north, 30 miles west, something like that. So it really is driving time. We really want to keep the driving time to an hour or less to the furthest delivery, because then you're hitting everything in that area. So that's basically the footprint. The diameter is probably about 70 mile diameter, but it's not a complete 35. It's 40 and 30.
Yeah. Yeah, if I had to guess, I think our farthest delivery is like 30 minutes from our store, but depending on the day, that 30 minutes could take you 2 hours to get there just because we're right outside of Philadelphia. But that's only a 5 mile, maybe a 7 mile radius.
Wow.
That dense.
Okay.
Yes, so just very dense area. But I like that kind of use of time is more of your metric, less of distance.
We adjusted our time of delivery. And again, we only have a handful of weeks, so it's not really, and we'd split into 2 days, not 6 or 7. But we pulled all of our delivery starting forward. It used to be later afternoon, but for time on road, if you start at 3:30, you're into bus traffic and then you run into like rush hour. So we pulled everything forward to about 2:00, which for us in our small amount of deliveries actually knocks half hour, 45 minutes off of the route, because you're missing all that traffic, which is
the rush hour.
I like the idea, like you said, of the time on road is a better metric than the distance.
I think it's important to say that you can pretty much build this however you want to start and then expand it from there, be as restrictive as possible. Dave said, we're only Tuesdays and Thursdays because that's the only days we can afford to have a driver out on the road. So we pile everybody on east one day, west the other day within that boundary. So definitely, I would say for any sorter listening, don't feel overwhelmed by it. You have to do 200 in across a week and just figure it out.
Like you think just start. Let's just start. Pick it up. Make the decision. I want everybody to be my customer. And how are you going to get everybody that has an animal? You're not going to get them unless you just hit the play button and move forward. Go. I'm just going to do it. If you start out with 1, 2, 3, 5 deliveries, you might be losing money initially, but the best advertisement for us is word of mouth. When customers start talking, when you tell customers, hey, you know what? People in your neighborhood have animals. Where are they buying their food from? Let's figure out how we can make this lucrative for everybody. Win-win. If you're not buying from us, we're both losing money. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. So I think then now that we've established who you are, your expertise in this topic, I think we can talk about if somebody's sitting there on the fence, not sure if they should do e-commerce delivery, what would some questions should they be asking themselves first, you think?
So obviously the first question really is, do you want to grow? That's the underlying thing. Do you want to grow? Is there a fear for what might happen if you end up having to do deliveries? If you are ready to say yes to that question, do you want to grow? Do you want to make every pet owner your customer? Then open the conversation. Reach out to a store, our store, anybody's store that already has a model in place. And the second thing would then be to start getting some numbers on the paper, figure out what your budget is, figure out, can you afford a vehicle and insurance for more than just yourself? If the answer is yes, then that's where you would take the next step. If your store is not the brand, to be able to be on multiple platforms, whether it be the internet, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. If you don't have that presence in the community, in the delivery trucks, at those community events, your township days, your events, you're invisible. There's a huge segment of potential customers. Yeah, you got to get them through your door, but the reality is that there are so many people that are just not going to be going through any doors, let alone your door.
Yeah, you talk about people are already sitting on their couches ordering from Chewy or Amazon or whatever convenience option they're using. How do you think about when you're trying to compete for that customer as an independent retailer? What do you think about?
These are people who are basically clicking links. They're just typing their credit card in. These people, believe it or not, really are thinking less about the total. They might be thinking about the individual price, but they're thinking less, in my opinion, about the total of what they're actually spending. So I know that I had mentioned it to you prior to this as we were just chatting. Your internet customers, your delivery customers, or ours anyway, typically spend more. The average ticket value is, in our case, double what the person walking into the store is coming. And it is spending. And it's not necessarily because of our minimums. If your site is set up in a way, if that's an option where you have a website and they're ordering from there, there's so many different opportunities to get other products in front of them, even more so than if they're walking into the store. If they're walking into the store, how many times they just come straight to the counter and they don't even visualize what's available. But if you're looking at a screen and it's just right in front of you, and you have a carousel on the bottom and you have this, like, it's easy to click as opposed to having to walk over and pick something up. There's those add-on sales really do make a difference.
That's something that excites me about us getting our e-commerce up is like, how do we get the add-on sales a lot easier than setting up end caps strategically so that they see the products we want them to see, where, like you said, you use a carousel to swipe through things you want to feature.
I also like the idea of what you said about not thinking. And yeah, if someone has to pull a credit card out, they're actually doing something. But if the number's already in the system, they just click and they don't have to do anything at all.
So can you give us like a real example of a customer you found through e-commerce or an event, or became a loyal customer essentially because you offered this service that you wouldn't have had otherwise?
So the most recent one is our Mother's Day event. We had a big Mother's Day event and we had paw painting and whatnot. There was a customer from North Jersey who was shopping in a big box store, and they came to the event with their very large dog. And we got to talking, and he basically told us what one of our leading questions typically is, oh, what are you feeding? And when I shared what he was feeding, and I said, oh, I think he asked, do we carry that or something? And I said, no, that's a proprietary brand. I said, but we do have equivalent or better. I said, so he says, yeah. So he had walked into the store and he found a brand, and we walked him over and we showed him, and we obviously didn't have enough stock for what he has a very large dog and he was feeding pouches. And so don't stock that many of them. But he said that, he would much rather order from us if we ship it. And I said, absolutely. I said, actually, you're in the free shipping zone. You're in this. And he was doing the pricing on what it comes out to per feeding. And he was actually saving money, ordering it through us, having it shipped to his door. And he ended up making that switch. So we were able to get that on as a special order for the first one. And then obviously adjust our stocking so that we have it when he needs it. And the subscriptions are great because it's integrated now with our POS. So we are ahead of time. We know, okay, next week we're going to need an extra 2 cases of this or 3 cases of this. So we can add it on. We don't necessarily have to adjust our minimums, but we can just add it on as it comes along.
Yeah, I think I have to have you back on for when we talk about in-store events and stuff like that, because you just have a wealth of ideas. I always see on your socials, like different things you're trying, different things you're doing. The Mother's Day one was so cute. The backdrop you had, the little puppy paint thing you did with the paws.
I think this past weekend was my favorite. We have treat sampling days, Costco style. We have food testing days, Costco style. Those are built into the monthly routine.
Now, when you have this new customer that you found on Mother's Day and kind of any other new customers you find from the e-commerce specifically, do you do any kind of remarketing to them or any kind of follow-up and be like, hey, how'd you find us?
That is an area that I definitely want to improve. That's one place that retargeting, the remarketing, the reaching out, the following up, that we definitely can use some improvement on. I have a lot of ideas. It's just execution that needs to be done.
If they make a purchase online and I can send them an email immediately, be like, thank you so much. It means a lot to us. Explain who you are. And then see, did you find us on Facebook? Did you find us on Instagram? So I know what channels actually work.
Yeah, a lot of those analytics are built into the platform. So you can see sometimes what's driving the sales online based just from the analytics of the platform. We use Shopify and I can look there and see what's driving, like what search terms somebody used to land on our whatever page. But again, it's not perfect. It's not without room for improvement in terms of linking everything together and Facebook marketing and Google marketing. So Google Analytics, I use even more than the Shopify Analytics. Shopify Analytics, I like to see first-time purchases, where they're from. Did you come from Google?
So that's something I'm very much looking forward to, kind of getting a little bit more in the weeds of what people are actually looking for when they find Braxton's and what converts different brands, different types of, whether it's species specific, anything like that.
Yeah.
So now that we've kind of talked about deciding if this is right for your store, if it's the customer you want to go after, we can talk about like how we build out without breaking our current operations. Because I think if somebody heard you doing 200, 300 deliveries and they're like, I got to do 200, 300 deliveries right away. So you run 3 divisions simultaneously under one roof between retail, delivery, and e-commerce. What does the day-to-day coordination actually look like across all 3 of those for you guys?
So it really is a joint effort. We have different divisions in the store. We have our warehouse division, we have our floor division, we have our e-com division, and we have our delivery division. So those are 4 key players in the one big game. They complement each other. So your delivery division is actually setting up the routes. They're getting all of the delivery tickets in order, the pick tickets in order. They're putting them in, separating them into the 2 routes that they're running every day or more. They're really doing everything, the nuts and bolts in terms of the delivery. So we have come a long way in the sense that before I took over, they were also processing the deliveries. So they were running the credit cards. They were doing the actual pull through. They were virtually 100% building their pallets and doing everything individually. And I really, when I took over and had the opportunity to look at each division as a single unit and how they can complement each other, I did make a few adjustments and just looking at, our in-store sales, our foot traffic is not what it was years ago. I'm sure everybody knows foot traffic is down. For us, it's steady, but it's definitely, they have time, they have room. So I just approached everybody. I said, what do we think about having the girls processing the transactions? Once they're set, that'll save you and be able to get you out on the road sooner. So they became part of that team. the team effort. I have an excellent store manager, and she was able to work it into her girls' mornings, and it took off from there. And then with the picking and the assembling of the pallets, almost the same thing. Our warehouse manager was very accommodating, and they are now helping to pull the products when their schedule allows them. And it's just more of a joint effort as opposed to your delivery division is only doing the deliveries, is only setting it up. And then obviously the delivery division can then focus on getting the trucks loaded and out the door. Our e-commerce, that division is run by a part-time dedicated person who comes in, dedicated employee. And he comes in and he pulls all the orders. He does his own picking. If there's something that we know is going to be going out, we might only have one or two, we'll pull it and we'll put it in his section. But he will typically he picks his own products. That's basically what it looks like. It looks like one big, happy, crazy, chaotic family that just everybody has a job to do and everybody's doing their job. And where you can help out, you help out.
I think the biggest thing I took from that was just being ready to pivot when your business pivots. If your foot traffic is down and your front staff needs to help the deliveries, being flexible with that and building that into the job description that's now is, because I think that's great. You get more utilization out of each of the employees. They get to see different parts of your business too. That's something that when we opened up our warehouse to front staff to be able to do, they get to see a whole different side of something they weren't even doing and how we service the customer fully.
Yeah, I've always been one for cross-training people. And some jobs, it is easier to have a single point person, like you said, a delivery manager or maybe a warehouse manager. But we've always been on the mindset of trying to involve the capability of the broadest set of people possible. And that way you're never short if someone's sick or someone's out or,
Absolutely
injured or whatever it is. I also agree with Tiff is like when you engage people that are typically in a silo in other areas of the business, they have a larger appreciation, a better appreciation for what other people are doing. If you're completely siloed, it's, the managers in the office, they're not doing anything. Or, the front staff girls, all they do is sit around and talk to customers and pet dogs all day. And I think the cross-training and cross-integration really helps the relationship between different areas of the business. And it's very practical.
That one blizzard that we had like 28 inches or something, it came on a Sunday, Monday. And they all seemed to come on Sunday, Monday this year, which was great because we're closed on Monday. But that Saturday, we knew we were getting hammered. And Tuesdays is a big farm delivery. And farms have to run. They have to feed their animals. It doesn't matter whether there's 28 inches of snow or not. They have to feed their animals. So that Saturday morning, we were short staffed to begin with. But somehow or other, by the grace of God, we managed to get out all of Tuesday's deliveries that Saturday. Frank even came and took a couple. He came out of retirement. He took a couple deliveries. My son-in-law came in. He took some deliveries. We had just people who don't necessarily do it. We managed to get it done. And I'll tell you what, those customers were more than appreciative. And I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it. And we just kind of took every little piece of the puzzle and we made it work.
My favorite thing about small business is I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it.
We're going to do it. And at the end of the day,
it always benefits. When you brought in some of the other staff members to help and train and learn the operation, did you have to build any kind of communication system or did you already have a communication system in place? Like just for staff to go back and forth and be like, I've got this one, you got this one, or...
So yes and no. These are walking. That's basically our communication system in terms of, hey, can you add one on? Or I have this, or we're out of this. But communicating amongst the staff, we use email, we use Google Chat for upstairs to downstairs.
Yeah, I guess during COVID, which is before my time, was probably the closest we had operationally to the amount of orders you're setting up. Because we've only done 10 deliveries a week. So it's really not hard to put on one person and they can just manage that. But when we closed our doors for COVID, and Dave had to literally design a communication system because we were just not doing that volume of pick pack for customers and trying to bring it curbside to them. And Dave, do you want to PTSD
That
that?
was- yeah. Not to do disservice to military PTSD people, but I had quite a response from COVID for years post. And it was just because building everything from scratch. And fortunately, we have a good point of sale system and a really good set of customers where I would say roughly 95% of our transactions are known customers. So we had histories and phone calls would come in. We'd say, hang on a second, let me log into your account. And then we had a central Google dashboard, a Google sheet. It was just a pick pack sheet. So I literally had a 55-inch TV as our main control board. I think that was a pretty good system that we whipped up pretty quick in order to fulfill.
So we already had the e-commerce during COVID. So we had Shopify. So really it was just a matter of very quickly adding on curbside. And it was just that at that moment, I took the easy. I don't typically try to take the easy route because it typically comes with an expense or a monthly fee. But there was an app. You can just add the app onto Shopify and it adds the ability to have a curbside pickup. And that was basically what we did. And the orders would come in. We would direct people to our website. The orders would come in, but they manually had to be entered into darts. We use the same POS system. So for us, we didn't do so much of the placing the orders for them or fielding it. It was probably an equal weight where they were able to order online and they were able to call.
Yeah. So I think when we talk about building an e-commerce or local delivery service and trying to build it without breaking your current operations, you have to ask yourself, can I physically, as an owner operator where I'm at in my business, take the time to build this? Is definitely a question to ask yourself. Because sometimes the owner operator, when you're right in the thick of it, first couple of years, you're literally chief everything officer in retail, all that. So you might not have the time to build that out. So you have to wait. So you at least get a couple employees under your belt, get a couple stages away from that season of business before you can make this kind of decision. Because I feel like if I'm literally running my front counter, I don't want to build out another operation that I'm also going to have to be in charge of until it is. And then I would also build something with maybe the end in mind. Like we talk about communication. And it's like, if you start this, you might be a one-man show like Frank was doing. He was literally just communicating with himself. I call the customer, I pick the stuff and everything. But I'm sure he was already thinking about, how do I pass this off to somebody else? How do I communicate this when I don't want to do it any longer and I need to go back into my business and expand something else? So like the building the communication process into it, even if it's just a one-man show for right now, just build everything, any system in your business with the end in mind of, if we 10X this, what does it need to look like right now to be able to communicate this information or make this happen? So the Hungry Puppy started with delivery with just Frank in one van, like we said, and doing it after hours. You're currently running 2 16-foot box trucks and an SUV 5 to 6 days a week. Can you walk us through the progression of how you got from literally one man with a van to what that is today?
So obviously it started out with Frank and his vehicle, and it just got to the point where it's too much time. How much time are you really going to dedicate after work? If you're working a 10-hour day, and are you really going to dedicate another 3 hours? You figure that would be an average route. At some point, Frank said, okay, it's time to have somebody else actually get in the van during hours and make these deliveries during the day. And he went, I want to say, I think at one point, I don't know, I'm going to have to ask him this. I think at one point, my brother actually did deliveries, but I don't know. So then he had somebody else that would take out the one van during the day. After a couple of years and shortly after, he realized, look, I can't go here, they're all in the same day. That was when he started narrowing down. Okay, we're going to I can get your delivery out on Thursday, Mrs. Jones. I'm sorry, that's when my truck is in the area. So the first thing he did was created the quadrants for where the vehicle was going to be, the one vehicle, which was a van at the time. And the van served two purposes. One, it was the delivery vehicle, but two, it also gave him a little bit more storage out back of his very small hole-in-the-wall store. Then once that van wasn't big enough, started out with one box truck. And then really your volume is going to dictate your needs. What do you really need? Right now, we have two vans and an SUV. Ideally, two trucks and an SUV. Ideally, that SUV should be a van. So that's the next step that we'll be making at some point over the course of hopefully the next 12 to 18 months, be able to work that into the budget and the store. The first question is, do you have a company vehicle? Because that's the first investment that should be made. Because once you have that company vehicle will become a write-off. It will become the ability for the company to pay all of the expenses on it for the company. But obviously, the money needs to be in the company in order to pay those expenses. Once your route gets too big for the van, that was when we expanded.
When you talk about budget for maybe upping to that next truck, do you section off the revenue streams of your business to be like delivery is going to pay for its own truck kind of thing? Or do you kind of just put it all in one bucket?
So for us, it's one company. Yes, we have it divided up. Like for my spreadsheets on my sales analysis and sales data, we do have it separated out. But am I expecting just the delivery revenue to be able to pay for that? No, that's really not how my bookkeeping is done. Yes, in the perfect world, the expectation is that delivery is covering the delivery expenses and e-commerce is covering the e-commerce expenses. We do separate it out that way. We do look at what your gross profit margin is for in the store for your deliveries and for your e-commerce separately. It's not all the same. We can give you one average for the entire store, but the entire company. But we do look at it individually also to just see and make sure we're not underwater. We're not upside down. But in the beginning, you need the store to be able to foot the bill to get started with any of the divisions.
You talk about expenses, and I think somebody could easily fathom if you do local delivery, like you said, you have to have the vehicle or the transportation apparatus, however you decide to do that, and then the cost of the employee, or if you hire somebody outside. I think the cost is kind of clear. With e-commerce, what are some of the expenses you have with, like, I know everybody's going to have a different platforms. Shopify probably charges you something.
Yeah, so that's obviously you have your platform expenses, you have your transaction fees, you have your credit card fees. Those are inherent with any division, whether it be your in-store, your delivery, or your e-commerce. But you also have things like you have your boxes. We do use boxes that we purchase. The packing material, that's the inserts, your bubble wrap, your foam pieces, your paper, the stuff that needs to protect what's in the box. So those are physical expenses. Obviously, you have the expense if you're going to have a person who's going to be dedicated to picking and packing. You're also going to have your shipping fees, your UPS, your US postage. And with that, you have to say, okay, who's paying the postage? Or is the customer paying the postage? And that's one of the challenges to compete with your Chewy and your Amazon, because everything is free delivery, free next day delivery, free delivery in 3 hours to your door. And that's where you really have to look at it and say, what you're getting when you're ordering from the Hungry Puppy is there's a lot more value to it than just clicking a link and it's showing up a few hours. You're getting a family. You're getting somebody that you can call, somebody that you can talk to. You're getting a human, somebody that you know when you call the store that you'll be able to talk to.
Well, getting back to platforms, and you've told me you've been through a lot of different platforms, WooCommerce, Miva, now Shopify. Did any of those trials teach you anything and how you landed on Shopify with being the most convenient for your store specifically and your POS system?
WooCommerce was a great way to get started. If anybody's going to get started, check to see what you're already using. If you already have a WordPress website, WooCommerce is a great way to integrate, because you can definitely sell through it at this point. You can create a very basic catalog. When we first started, we didn't even have any online selling through WooCommerce. We just had WooCommerce as a catalog. Whatever you're using, see if there's something that you're already using. We used WooCommerce because we did have WordPress back then. So, but then it wasn't enough. We wanted to expand things and we just didn't have the ability to. And AI was not around yet to say, hey, can you do this for me? So we moved to Miva. Not sure exactly how we chose Miva, but we moved to Miva. Miva was a step up. It did the job, but there came a point when we said that we were looking at platform fees. Miva was not inexpensive by any means, and Shopify was just right in front of us. And we started out with 2 Shopify sites. When we migrated over to Shop, it made sense for us just to switch to Shopify fully. And Shopify is so customizable. So the way that it looks for us now is we bring a product in, we have that product. I immediately ask for, all right, give me a copy of your map policy. I want a copy of your map policy because I want to see exactly my product page needs to look like in order to comply with your terms. Because the hungry puppy does not necessarily like map pricing. And we have to, in order to sell at what we want it to, in order for the final price to be what we want our customers to pay, we can't advertise that anywhere. And it really creates an obstacle for selling online. And it's a double-edged sword because there are places that you don't see the hungry puppy because we can't show our prices, but it also allows, once people realize, hey, add to cart is not a bad thing, or checkout for price is not a bad thing, it usually means you're getting a better price. And after reading the map policies, we have 3 separate product templates that we've created over the course of the past 10 years, that take into consideration the different policy guidelines and rules that we have to abide by in terms of selling the product for what we want to sell it at and ensuring that it's not being advertised. So really just customization is why Shopify landed where it landed, because we were able to really get into there. And now with the advent of AI, everything is totally customizable.
We've interviewed quite a few different POS systems, and sound like from your experience, like having something that communicates orders, communicates inventory back and forth between the store, what you have on hand, what you can get, and then to the website is crucial. And like some of the ones we've interviewed, Fran Post, eTail Pet, like we always were impressed with that kind of feature they had within them. There was other features that we didn't necessarily like, but that, if you have any of those, I was personally impressed with. You could immediately put your products up online. It had pictures. It had all that work that you had to put in manually to build those catalogs. So that, like, if you pay for those systems and you're not doing these and you have that capability, I would lean into that because you're already paying their platform price. You might as well be using all the benefits it has for it. I feel like the stores that if you're on the fence about doing e-commerce or delivery, just check with your POS that you currently have. I feel like that's going to be like the lowest friction point of starting this because they might already offer a service. I think it was Fran Post when we talked to them. They're like, we literally help you set it up. Yes, you get the in-store POS, but then they help you set up your website and everything and help you aesthetically do it. If you don't have the background that Theresa has and Dave has with some of the coding they're doing on the back end, which does sound overwhelming because I do not have that experience. And if AI can't do it for me, I can't do it. But if that sounds overwhelming, just check with who you're already using. Square, Fran Post, eTail Pet. I usually am impressed with those companies when they have their customer service of helping hold your hand, get this stuff set up so that you can expand your business in that way. So a couple of things to close out, to see if your store is ready for this kind of move. We talked a little bit about this already. Before you build anything, do you have an honest view of what your business needs from you already? And is it going to be too much or push you over the edge at the current stage you're in to build this right now? Because I think that'd be a huge red flag if you're like, I just can't get 5 minutes to myself, let alone 5 minutes to build another system in my business. Adding a new channel to a struggling operation, it doesn't fix an operation. It just amplifies the problems. Like you said, we talked about COVID. We didn't have those communication in place because we didn't have that strain on our business. Now we have a lot more communication when it comes to putting different products together, different orders together if we do curbside or delivery. There were things that were babies of that pandemic that are still in our business today because they were stress points. So a couple checkpoints to ask yourself, is your store's operation stable enough that you could add a layer of complexity without breaking something? Do you have at least one person on your team you could have own the new channel, whether it's you or an employee that's interested in helping you build this kind of thing? I think setting a simple goal for yourself of I'm going to spend X amount of hours or this whole day of the week to build this out. And if you can't afford to set that goal, that could be a tell sign that you just don't have the time to build it right now. And then I'd ask the follow-up question, if I don't have time to build this right now, how can I gain that time? What do I need to add to my business? Do I need another front staff employee to cover the floor? Do I need a warehouse worker? Whatever that is. Ask the question after that of like, how can I get my business there? Because it's something you clearly want to do and drive for. Do I have the physical space to stage and pack and fulfill these orders? You have a very impressive warehouse space. And then I think you said you use some of your store to pick, pack and everything. And we have that as well. But if you're like what do they call them? The little stores that are in strip malls and might not have the warehouse backing. So you have to build a space that you can pick, pack. One of my favorite Instagram retailers, her name, I don't know her name, but the Modern Companion, she does a lot of e-commerce small items. She designs pet stickers and then she does add-on wolf toy type purchases. But she has a whole closet in her back that's just staging for her e-commerce. And she's shown that in some of her videos. But she has a very unique and specific system to make sure that every order is correct, every order goes out on time to the right person, all that. Can you afford those upfront costs that Theresa was just talking about of like the truck or the vehicle for your business? Any platform fees, packaging fees or materials, additional staff hours, like you said, pick packers. And do you know who your delivery customer actually is? Braxton's right now, we don't really market our delivery service just yet because we're waiting for this e-commerce to come up to help push it through. But when we do, we have to reevaluate how we do all of our marketing because it's a completely different customer that wants that convenience. And are you willing to own the customer experience like end to end, including when something goes wrong with shipment or delivery? So we got a question from one of our community members this week from Shauna from Celebrity Pets Company in Northville, Michigan. She wants to set up e-commerce. She just doesn't really know where to start. She does local delivery already. She has Square as her POS system. Theresa, how would you guide or advise Shauna to start this?
So, Shauna, the fact that you're already running local delivery it's a huge head start. You're in the running. You understand fulfillment. You have your team. You know how to pull and stage products. You have customer relationships that are outside of your walls. E-commerce is really just extending that. It's the same operation to customers beyond your delivery radius. Really now you have to look at the mechanics. And since you're already on Square, to me, that would look like it would be the natural starting point. Square has its own e-commerce functionality. So I would definitely look into that. It's worth exploring it before you say, you know what, I'm going to go right to Shopify or I'm going to go right to another platform. The advantage to utilizing Square, if that's what you're on, is that your inventory, your data, everything would already live there and it exists as a unit without some complicated integration like we had to do to integrate. So one of the things is that you really have to acknowledge that when you make the jump into e-commerce, it's not really just the website. It's not just putting some things online where people can click a button and order. It's the complete operation. It's having things online, adding things to your online catalog, making sure that the pricing is updating. And that all comes with integrating with your POS system. But then it's also the picking, the packing, the shipping. That's a whole new discipline. You need to think that through before your first order actually goes out. But then you have to think about shipping or what is local to you. Are you going to use UPS or are you going to use USPS? Think about shipping platforms. We personally use ShipStation, but there's so many other platforms that you can utilize to integrate with your online. So we use ShipStation with Shopify, and that pulls our carrier rates in. It lets you print all your labels, your pick lists, everything in one place. Again, it's another added thing. The other thing that you have to start thinking about and getting on paper is your shipping rate structure. How is that going to look? We offer free shipping with a minimum in what UPS considers zone 1. So that's almost like the tri-state area, a little outside of the tri-state area. So anybody in that zone, it'll automatically populate. They get free shipping. And if they meet the minimum, if they don't meet the minimum, then it's just a flat rate of $8.95 for that order. So once you figure out your shipping structure and your fees, you have to think about the what ifs. What happens when? What happens when that customer calls you and is very upset how they never got their shipment? Their shipment came, it was damaged, the cans are dented, there was a delay. So the biggest thing, Shauna, that I'd recommend is start small. Be methodical, get your numbers in order. Don't try to ship everywhere on day one. Maybe just do your tri-state area. Get your process dialed in and then expand from there.
That's good. Dave, what would you suggest for Prada?
I think Theresa kind of touched on a few of the things that I would frame and maybe reinforce is I have for our store what's called the product journey. And it's really understanding your internal operations. And I look at it as how many times do you touch a product? You order it. So who's your ordering person? What's the process for ordering when you order from your vendors? It lands on your loading dock. Who receives it? What's the process for receiving? How many times is that product touched just to get into your store? Like from the loading dock to be scanned in to end up on your shelf in your storage. And then for us as a brick and mortar, then you have an employee or a customer picking it up. It goes to the front counter, then it gets checked out at point of sale, then it gets brought out to the car. So if you understand this, what's your inventory journey from order to exit? And now you have to add a few more steps for e-commerce or delivery, right? Because you have the pick, pack, the packaging. This is a different process, the different for storage, and every touch has a cost involved with it. So I think taking what Theresa was saying about the internal process of preparing products is just imagine what that is and write it out so that you understand it better. And this leads into a typical business process called breakeven point, right? You have local delivery, so you have some costs already embedded, your vehicle, your driver, maybe you have packaging for local delivery, any of these costs. And then of course, e-commerce, you have the cost of the boxes and the packaging and the pick back there as well. So you don't have to know every single detail, but the idea would be to have a very good understanding that there's a minimum amount that you would have to do through that channel in order for it to begin to add value to your business. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it because you're not going to start at profitability necessarily, but it's good to understand, right? Our delivery business at 20 a week is profitable, but it's just the way we have it structured. We have a very good system in place for how we do the pick pack and how we set it aside, how it gets put into the vehicle. So all of these are known to us that are unknown to someone who's just starting off. Like we started this conversation earlier on, is starting a brick and mortar is very capital intensive, right? It's a building and it's people, you're paying rent. To expand that delivery, vehicles are less than buildings, right? Delivery personnel. And again, you probably have capacity within your four walls anyway. You have front staff that have downtime. Okay, they're your pick packers. They're processing the inbounds on the computer or on the phone. So you probably have 80% of what you need. And you have these kind of like fixed costs anyway. And you're only adding incremental costs to get this additional value.
Yeah. And Sean, I'll close out your question just from a personal experience, because we are literally where you're at. We do local delivery, but we don't do e-com, and we're building that out now. But the fortunate thing is the POS system we have decided to stay with doesn't have the same connections that the Franpost, the e-tail, the Square have, like the beautiful seamlessness of the So we are building that out through WooCommerce and trying to navigate the communication between our internal site or between our internal POS and everything. But making sure that we had set out, like before we started, we had a go or no go list of if the site cannot do these things, we can't pursue this because it was going to put too much strain on our internal operations. And then if one side eventually outweighed the other, when we found workarounds to those problems of, hey, we can have WooCommerce plugins to solve this problem, to solve that problem. So we are currently in development of our e-commerce site that we are using a third-party developer because web development is not my background. And we're working very closely. That person's working very closely with the person that designed the POS system, way that we know when it's finally built, it's going to communicate back and forth. You could start there too, of just, if I started with Square's retail or e-commerce, what does it have that I don't necessarily like? Is there a workaround for that? Is it going to put strain on my business if those issues aren't met, kind of thing? I think Square is probably one of those that doesn't have a direct communication with like Astro, or maybe it doesn't have the manufacturer's information like Franpost or eTailPet. Literally has the photos, the item descriptions, the weights, all of the UPC data and everything. So that would be something
Wow.
I would think about, is that you have to, again, build out that catalog and give it to Square. And last question I have for you, Theresa, because we talked about a lot of different things. If you could have an independent pet retailer listen, what would you have them walk away with today?
So the biggest thing is that you want to be a destination. You want to be a destination both in the real world and in the virtual world. So you want to provide services, because providing services, what is spelling success? And it's up to you to make your brand a destination, whether it's online, whether it's in person, in the community. And the greatest benefit comes when it's both, when you're the destination online and you're the destination in person. Every touch point that you can imagine needs to be added to your business. Email, text, phone, online. I want every customer to be a customer of the Hungry Puppy, not just the ones who want to come to the Hungry Puppy and come to the dog park and come to the Rainbow Bridge Pet Memorial. I don't want the customers that only are looking for knowledge or expertise. I want the customers that are staying home, the customers that are watching Netflix. I want the customers that are going to the grocery store and grabbing off of the shelves. Don't give up on any of that. Don't give up on getting to that final goal that you've set. Set the goal and achieve it just by starting with one delivery. Forget about the 200 deliveries, start with one.
I like your viewpoint on the customers that you're not serving right now. They're being served by somebody else. That's not necessarily a threat. It's an opportunity to earn that customer. But if you don't offer these services, you do not have that opportunity to earn that customer at all. And technology, if it integrates, can be the easy part. The commitment to the customer across every channel is the hard part, and the part that Chewy and Amazon can't replicate as of now. So start where you are. So thank you again, Theresa, for being here. And at the time, I know we went a little bit over, but for sharing your wisdom, because by far the most impressive example I've heard of e-commerce and delivery, independent pet specifically, and out of one store.
Well, I am very blessed. I don't want anybody to think that was me. It was not me. I'm very blessed and grateful to my aunt and uncle that they had the trust and that they placed in me on my plate to carry forward. It's not easy, but it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah. And it definitely says something to you. I feel like your character, like you said, this is their baby, right? That business is their baby, and they passed it on to you because they know that it was in good hands, like the values and wanting to push it forward into the next generation and everything. And I know I learned a lot today on how we're going to structure our own service. And hopefully we have it up within the next quarter so we can start learning and working out those kinks. Next week, we're going to be moving through this series. We're going to talk about organic social media. That's going to be mainly just the Facebook and Instagram, because those are the primary modes that most people use these days, and just other online marketing. So Google, and how you can build systems around those things so that it doesn't seem like a daunting task to complete every week. Because I think I hear a lot of retailers talk about, I just don't have time to post on social media. Where right now you don't have time to not post on social media because that's where your consumer is. That's where they're consuming content. They want to find out about you. They want to know you. Until then, thank you again, Dave and Theresa, and we'll see you guys next week.